So welcome to the video. So I'm here to talk about stretching or increasing flexibility for guitar. It's my background, this I've been teaching for 35 years. I'm going to teach two exercises, one beginning intermediate one and one advanced one. The advanced one I learned when I was at Musicians Institute back in 86, 87. But I also come to this whole stretching and flexibility issue from being a martial arts instructor for 27 years also, and also lifting weights for over 30 years. So because of my involvement in that stuff, I also read books like The Science of Flexibility, which gets into way more depth than what you need to on this. But so I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how to do this safely, and then we'll get right into the exercises. So I'm a big believer in whether you're doing a sport specific, or in this case guitar exercises. So what I mean by that is you can get the ability you need, whether it's strength, flexibility, coordination, through actually doing your instrument, playing your instrument. You don't need apparatus or gadgets on it. There's a lot of ones you'll see for sale that claim to increase your strength or flexibility, and they might actually do that. But anytime you're adding resistance, there's enough difficulty already on guitar. Enough people develop carpal tunnel, tendonitis, other things, that adding resistance exercises in the same muscles, you just run the risk of more injury. Plus, it doesn't give the benefit of actually doing it on guitar, because you're not developing your finger placement, your hand placement, your synchronization between your pick and your fingers. All of those other little side benefits from doing exercise on the guitar. So I'd recommend don't do those. Instead, work actual licks on guitar. If you're doing chord or a scale run or something that's difficult for you, and it's too much of a stretch, you can move it to smaller frets, practice it there, and then gradually work your way back to where the bigger frets and maybe it's more difficult for you. Also check your hand placement. We'll talk more about this. A lot of times people, for example, if I put my thumb here and in this position, now if my guitar is hung down lower, that can be a different issue. But again, you have to do your hand position depending on how you're holding a guitar. If I'm playing at 7, I can barely reach, I can't even reach to 10 hardly on here. But now if I lower my thumb down, I can stretch out. It allows my hand to expand. So a lot of times students will come to me and say they can't reach something, but they're doing this and they can't reach. And it's like, well, that's not a lack of flexibility, that's a lack of better hand positioning. So check that if you're having trouble reaching something. Another mistake people make is they use difficult stretching exercises as a warm-up or cool-down. That's a mistake. If you're doing something that's very relaxing, doesn't push yourself at all, yeah, that's a good warm-up or cool-down. Though if you're doing a stretching exercise that doesn't push you at all, I question why you're even doing it to some extent. But if you're doing exercise that's actually difficult or strenuous or pushes yourself, that's not a good warm-up or cool-down. You need to warm up first and then do strenuous things. Otherwise, you increase your chance of injury. So the exercise I'm showing, especially the second one, don't do those at the end or beginning of a workout, in practice session. Same thing at the end. If you're doing it as a cool down, the problem is your muscles are already tired, and what protects your joints, which is why you have to worry about injuring, is the muscles around them. So when they get more tired, they give less protection to a joint. They don't hold it as stable, and when your joint becomes unstable and it gets twisted or something, that's when you get injuries. And you really don't want injuries. So myself, I've had torn ligaments in both wrists, one due to martial arts and one due to a home improvement project. It took over 2 years to heal in both cases. So it's much better to just take a break and not finish the exercise than to push through it and possibly injure yourself. And that's another thing to think about too. If you're feeling pain in the joints, like where in the wrist, your elbow, that's when you should stop. If it's just sore in your muscles, like your forearm or something, that's fine. Muscles will rebuild themselves stronger. Joints don't. When you injure it, it just makes everything harder. So let's jump into the first exercise. So this is a simple one. For advanced players, people are going to play the second exercise. This could be a good warm-up for you. Because again, if it's easy for you, it's okay to warm up. Warmers also should use all 4 fingers. That's a good thing to do since you're trying to warm up all your fingers. So basically, I'm going to start 7th fret, just because that's a good place where I found beginners can usually reach, because the frets are smaller. And get good finger placement and just play all 4 notes all the way down. and then you can return back up. One of the keys, if you're working on flexibility though, is make sure you keep your fingers down. Don't pick them up, otherwise you're not working your flexibility and you're not working your positioning. And this is a good exercise for your positioning to get your fingers used to staying in place and not moving all over using one finger or something to do something you can just switch fingers for. Now, as this gets easier, move down a fret. So you're doing incremental changes to make it slightly more difficult. Each fret you move down, they get slightly bigger. Don't move down to a bigger fret until it's easy at the current fret you're at. If you find you can't reach the bass strings, remember lower your thumb, or just play the high strings until you get enough flexibility that you can gradually play all 6 strings. Once you can comfortably play here and get good finger placement where my fingers are placing, right by the fret on this side all the way through, that's when you can try the second exercise. I would really say if you can't comfortably do this position, don't even try this next exercise. So the next one, I'm going to start at the same spot. Now you, again, can start any fret you want. If you go too far up, it kind of cockeyes your wrists and makes this exercise a little bit harder, I'd say. So I'd say this middle section is probably the easiest area to play it in. Now what I'm going to do is hold down 10, 9, 8, 7. So the same thing we were doing on the other one, but now I'm putting a finger on each string. So that it's on 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st string. Then I'm going to play through and make sure that each note rings out cleanly. Then what I'm going to do is move one finger down. Now as you get to the bigger frets down here, you're really going to have to, you're not going to be able to move that down just by doing this. You're going to have to point that finger to get that note to ring out. So it's okay to start doing that down here too if you want, or if you're having trouble reaching, think of separating your hand. Now when you separate your hand like this, notice my pinky goes one direction, my first finger kind of goes another direction, but these two don't really go too far either direction. They are more straight up and down. Same thing's going to happen here. My first finger will start stretching this way. I can't necessarily stretch my pinky that far this way because I'll probably muffle the other strings, and that's where this exercise is a little bit harder than if I was doing the same thing on a single string. I could go much further. Okay, so we just moved down to 6. So now I'm going to do the same exercise, but I'm going to move this finger down to one fret. So now there's a gap. So this is probably the hardest one. There's a gap between the 2nd and 3rd finger. And again, you're going to do it till you can do all of them cleanly. If you need to stop and reposition your hand, go for it. And then I move the 3rd finger down, so same thing. And then move the pinky down. And they can just do it continuously moving down the neck. If it's making you sore though, stop. Again, it's more important not to injure yourself. Don't overdo it. Whereas like 20, when I first learned this, I could go from the 12th fret all the way to the 1st fret. I wouldn't even want to really try that nowadays because I'm much older. My hands can't really take that level of strain on it. And personally, my preference is not to do extreme stretching when I'm playing. I've kind of moved away that if I'm doing more than like a major third, I'm usually going to be probably shifting my hand. I'm not necessarily, and same thing if I have to do some extreme stretching chord, I'm probably going to refinger it. It's not that I don't have flexibility to do it, but again, with having torn ligament in my wrist for that took a couple years to heal, I get sore more easily on it. But let's go and try this position to see if I can still do this. So again, stretch down here, the hard one here, then here, and then the pinky. So if that's easy for you and you can do that there, honestly, you can probably play it just only like you're going to run into on guitar. If there is something that's harder than that you're running into, use that as your stretching exercise, honestly, and that will be good enough. And if you need to simplify and leave a finger off at first on the exercise that's too hard for you, or move to small frets, do that. That's fine. So here's the tab for what I just played. And it's pretty straightforward though, so I don't think it's that hard to remember. I'll go ahead and leave it at that. So I hope you liked the video, and any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. Thanks. And please subscribe if you can. I always forget to say that. Thanks. Bye.